Welcome to the Heavy Spoilers Show. I'm your host Deffinition, and this episode we're going to be breaking down everything that you need to know about 2020's first big horror movie, The Grudge. Throughout this video we'll be going over the main plot elements of the film, including its overall storyline and ending. There will be heavy spoilers here, so if you haven't had a chance to see the film yet, then I highly recommend that you turn off now. Chances are though that you haven't seen the film and you just want to spoil it. We all get that. 166,000 subscribers, so yeah, I'm not judging you for clicking this video. Anyway, thanks for checking this out. Happy New Year. Now let's get into a breakdown of The Grudge.
Your husband told me about your condition, and I'm here to see if I can help. Mrs. Matheson, are you all right?
Okay, so the events of The Grudge actually play out in a non-chronological order, and the timeline jumps about from year to year throughout the film in order to tell the entire story. This is something that's always been a big aesthetic of the franchise, but to keep everything streamlined, I'm going to be putting the events in the order that they happen, just so you don't get confused. Up top though, in order to understand the film, you have to understand what The Grudge itself actually is. At its most basic level, the grudge is a curse that is formed when someone dies in a state of either extreme rage or sorrow. After passing away, their spirit becomes attached to a location, most commonly a home. If someone is to enter the property and unwittingly encounter the spirit, they will be followed by it, and once they die, the curse is then reborn. It's pretty much right, like a forwarding chain letter that spreads almost from person to person and location to location, infecting all who come across it. Now, what it basically means is that the horror is inescapable, and no matter where you go, no matter what you do, the spirit will eventually come for you. Whilst this is a terrifying idea, it also makes for a quite predictable storyline, as we do know that eventually the characters will all succumb to their fate with no chance of escape. The Grudge is basically a virus that contaminates people and spreads from person to person. This is a very straightforward ghost story, but as mentioned earlier, where the creative team tried to vary up the film a bit is through their use of the timeline that the events happen in, and by reordering everything, they're able to tell a more interesting story. The movie itself opens in Japan 2004. We join a live-in nurse named Fiona Landers and follow her and her family, the Landers, who become big players in the storyline. After witnessing some disturbing things in the Tokyo household, she encounters ghosts and these curse her. Bit of trivia, this is the cursed location from the original 2004 film starring Sarah Michelle Gellar, and this is the starting point of the curse. The detectives in this film reference the detectives from the original movie, and the correspondence between the officers are the same. Desperate to escape, Fiona flees to America, unwittingly taking their malevolent spirits with her. Later in the film we learn that Fiona murdered both her husband and daughter, and then committed suicide, cursing her home. In the timeline, this is where we join the Spencers, two real estate agents named Peter and Nina that are expecting their first child. Unfortunately, they discover that their unborn baby has the rare genetic disorder ALD. This is a real-life disease that ravages young children, and though initially they may seem healthy, eventually the child will begin to regress, pick up solitary behavioural traits, and then suffer from blindness, deafness, seizures, loss of muscle control, and dementia. This either leads to death or disability, and it's a really horrible disease that puts the two in an almost impossible situation. They don't know whether to abort or keep their child, but eventually they settle on raising it and appreciating the time that they have left. The film is very much about making the most of the time that you have, and throughout the movie there are several characters that deal with loss, death, and living on borrowed time. However, they all strive to do their best and turn lemons into lemonade, though yeah, it's a bit difficult when a killer ghost is trying to murder you and your whole family. Anyway, a police investigation takes place not long after, and Detective Wilson and Detective Goodman are called to discover exactly what happened. Goodman refuses to enter the house after he gets a funny feeling, but Wilson does, and this is when he's infected by the Grudge. Wilson sees an apparition of Fiona, and slowly he's haunted by spirits until he's driven to suicide. Unlike the others though, this attempt fails, and Wilson survives shooting himself, which leaves him massively disfigured. He's put into a psychiatric asylum where he lives in constant fear that a ghost will come for him. During this time, the Spencers have listed the Landers' house, and Peter comes face to face with the ghost of Melinda, the Landers' daughter. Unfortunately, this doesn't really have a happy ending, and a cursed Peter ends up murdering his wife and unborn child before dying himself. Now, one of my biggest problems with The Grudge, outside of the over-the-top jump scares, is that it's very, very bleak. I know it's a horror movie, but this film feels like it's purposely just ruining people's lives. For me personally, that's not really something that I find that entertaining, and I would rather watch complexities and character arcs than them all being doomed to die, which is what happens here. It's a sort of film version of the ALD disease, and whether intentional or not, they do line up quite a lot. Now, whether you find it entertaining watching someone just decay until they die is probably going to set the level for how much you enjoy this movie, but in my opinion, the bleakness makes it hard to really become invested in. This lack of hope is exemplified in the Mathesons, who we join in 2005. They move into the Landers' home and become infected with the Grudge. The Mathesons are made up of William and Faith, and the latter suffers from dementia. Faith begins to witness the spirit of Melinda around her home, and though she is initially joyful and playful with the ghost, things quickly change when it becomes more menacing. William, left with little options, calls for a suicide consultant named Lorna, who monitors Faith and stays with the family, witnessing firsthand exactly what's going on. She talks to William about this, who says he finds comfort in the ghost because it means there's an afterlife, but as we know, this series isn't about happy endings, so Faith murders him the next day and slices off her own fingers. Yay! Lorna discovers this and tries to escape, but she's attacked in the car by a spirit and dies at the roadside. The police later discover this, and this is where we join who I'd consider the main character in the timeline. That is Detective Muldoon, a widow who moved town with her son Burke after her husband sadly died from cancer. Muldoon is a policeman that pretty much unearths the ins and outs of the case, and it's through her that we begin to piece together exactly what's gone on. She's partnered up with Detective Goodman, and they discover Lorna's car and corpse in the woods. Goodman divulges about the curse on the house and how death seems to follow whoever enters it. However, against her better judgment, Muldoon goes there and discovers Faith. Faith is taken to hospital and commits suicide there, and Muldoon continues her investigation, but she begins to be haunted by the Landers. This leads her to visit Wilson in the asylum, who tells her that she's been cursed and that she will slowly spiral into insanity, much in the same way that he did. He tries to gouge his eyes out, and yet that's how I felt watching this film. I'm just kidding, guys, it was great. Muldoon discovers the curse's origins and how Fiona brought it over from Japan, and she's attacked by the Landers once more. In a last-ditch attempt to rid herself of the spirits, she travels back to the house that the curse is seemingly coming from and burns it to the ground. We'll get into how the ending differs for international audiences in just a bit, but Muldoon seemingly defeats the spirits and they burn to the ground with the house. Muldoon returns to her home and embraces her son before he goes to school. However, in the background we can see another version of him, the real one, leaving the house. The child that Muldoon is hugging is in fact Melinda, and this shows that the curse has continued and now found a new home. We don't see if it kills Muldoon or not, but we can guess that it will eventually catch up to her. Once more, the cycle will likely start again, with the house being investigated, estate agents listing it, and the disease will continue to spread from person to person. Now, where this ending differs internationally is that this final scene is never actually shown, it's only implied. Detective Muldoon still burns down the house, but instead of being attacked by the ghost at the end, she merely pulls up to the house, enters it, and the credits begin to roll. Maybe that's the happy ending I was looking for, but it does kinda negate a sequel and emphasize that the curse is over, whereas the main ending states that it still exists. So it's basically a pick your poison here, but going off the rules of the curse, I believe that it still exists and has infected Muldoon. As for the film itself, I really had a lot of hopes for this, especially with Sam Raimi's name attached to it, but it fails in several ways, making for a very uninteresting and predictable movie. The Grudge is a franchise that I feel has kinda run its course now, and the movie cements that for me, with it being a waste of time rather than a compelling journey. If you're bored and just want a fun 90 minutes, then hey, maybe this is the one to check out this week for you, but for everyone else, I'd just advise that you steer clear. I feel like I've been cursed every time I go to the cinema because it's just crap. So I cut that out. The Grudge sadly gets a 3 out of 10. Now, obviously, I'd love to hear your thoughts on it and if you enjoyed it. This film is getting slammed by the critics, so I'd love to hear what you enjoyed from it, or if you didn't like it like me, yeah, just let me know. If you like this video, then please give it a thumbs up, and make sure you check our full breakdown of this week's other big release, Dracula, which is going to be linked at the end. We go over everything that you need to know about the show and its ending, so it's definitely worth checking out if you have any questions. If you want to come chat to me after the video, then make sure you follow me on Twitter at DeffinitionYT, or head over to my Discord server, which will be linked in the description below. We drop videos on there early, so if you want to see stuff before anyone else, then that's the best place to be. It's free to join and we have an awesome community, so hopefully I'll see you over there very soon. We're also giving away a free copy of Joker, which is one of our favourite movies of the last year, and all you have to do to be in with a chance of winning is like the video, make sure you subscribe to the channel and leave your thoughts on The Grudge in the comment section below. The winner's going to be chosen at random on the 15th of January and the set will be shipped out from then to whoever gets the prize, so best of luck to everyone who takes part. This is a channel for people who are mad into movies, so if that's the kind of thing you like, hit subscribe. Huge thank you for taking the time to watch this. I've been Deffinition, you've been the best, and I'll see you next time. Take care, peace.